I'll call the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order for November 1st. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Nancy Pease. Jim Frederick. Connie Yoshimura. Here. Tony Jones. Arthur Isham.
Here.
John Weddleton. Bruce Phelps. Stacy Dean.
Here.
Terry Parks.
Here.
Okay, we're down, looks like three people tonight. Okay, why don't we okay, all right. Okay, I'm going to need a motion to add the school district minutes to our agenda tonight. We didn't receive them until late, so if somebody would make that motion.
I make the motion that we add the school district minutes to our agenda.
Is there a second? Thank you, Stacy. Any discussion? Any objection? No objection. Okay, those are added to the agenda tonight. Okay, Ms. Yoshimura, would you please do the disclosures for us this evening?
Ms. Pease, do you have anything you'd like to disclose this evening?
No, I do not.
Okay. Mr. Parks?
I was missing the meeting for the school district. However, I did listen to it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Weddleton?
On the Terraces Estates, Don McClintock is representing one of the sides, and he's a neighbor for many years.
Okay, thank you. Stacy, Dean?
No disclosures, and I did not listen to these school board tapes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Isham?
I have nothing to disclose this evening.
Well, I have several items that I would like to disclose. First of all, in regarding S11143-4, I would like to disclose that I have had in the past business relationships and do currently with Dave Hultquist, who is a member of the Sky Harbor Homeowners Association. I would also like to disclose that I am a borrower and have a business relationship with First National Bank of Alaska. However, I'm not a party to and have no financial interest in that case. The same would be true for the case regarding the S11812 and 2010-065. Snow Raven Properties is owned by Dave Hultquist, and I have a business relationship with Mr. Hultquist, but I'm not a party and have no financial interest in these two particular cases. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Yoshimura, in regards to case C2, that S11143-4, did you say you had a business relationship, or was that, again, just similar to what you discussed under the Snow Raven properties?
The same as the Snow Raven.
Okay, so
I have no financial interest in that case. Thank you.
All right. So these are just disclosures for general information. You don't feel that you're disqualified? Okay, thank you. So it looks like we'll all be participating in everything this evening. Now we'll move to C2. This particular rehearing has been requested to postpone until the 6th of December. We need a positive motion to postpone. Thank you, Ms. Dean. Thank you, Ms. Yoshimura. Okay, is there any discussion? Is there any objection? Yes, I'm sorry.
I would just like to say how pleased I am that it would appear that the two parties are being able to work this resolution out, and I would encourage them to continue in that effort, and hopefully this case will not need to come back.
Yeah, well, right now, all we're doing is postponing it until the 6th, and that gives them about 30-plus days. So, is there any further discussion? Any objection to postponing this till date certain of 6 December? There's no objection. That is postponed until the 6th of December. Okay, now let's move to the consent agenda. We need a motion to deal with this. Okay, Mr. Weddleton, you move to approve the entire consent agenda?
No, I may pull a few.
Okay.
Do that after.
And is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Yoshimura. Is there any items that we wish to pull on the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull D1C and D1D.
See, wait a minute. You want to pull 1A?
D1C
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
D1D.
Okay. Any other items to pull?
No, I have comments on D1C also.
Okay.
And so do I.
Okay. Any other items to pull? Okay, so the motion now is to approve items D1A, B, E, F, G, H. Is there any objection? Those items are approved. Mr. Weddleton, let's go ahead and discuss D1C.
Well, all I had on D1C was just to note the edit that staff provided us in the title. Is that right? Where they scratched out development area H?
Yes, go ahead.
My understanding from Sue Perry was Development H wasn't really, it was going to be Powder Ridge subdivision. It was Powder Ridge subdivision, and they didn't feel that area development H was applicable anymore.
Well, that's fine. I mean, I accept the change. I just wanted to,
Oh.
I don't know if it's automatic when they send us a revision.
I had them give you the red line so you could see the changes.
Okay, so that's the one we're working on, is with it taken out.
Right.
Okay, well, I'm good with it. We'll move on to
Are we?
someone else.
Are we?
Any other further
Yes. Is this the time when are we approving the version of the resolution that appears in the minutes of the Anchorage School Board and Planning Zoning Commission that was put before us?
What we're looking at right now is the resolution that was in the packet from us. You would have been emailed, I think, and then I put a hard copy in front of you.
Okay.
And that's what we're working on right now, and we haven't done the minutes yet.
It's the corrected version.
The corrected version on the yellow.
It's the yellow sheet that we're looking at. And there's one red line where it says Development Area H has been deleted from the title.
Aha. Okay. I'm sorry, then, I did not have a chance to look at it and would like to have a minute to do so if we could move on to Mr. Weddleton's other resolution and then just come back to this one. So I only looked
Okay, we haven't voted on this yet, so if you want to read that, go ahead. Mr. Weldon, you want to talk about 210038?
So
Okay, moving on to D1D. Couple points in this, and on the first page, A1, it says utility substations necessary to provide electricity in the hillside, and I believe that came from me, and my notes that I was reading from said provide reliable electricity. But if I failed to say reliable, then I'd leave it as it is.
Okay.
But I usually read straight off of something I wrote.
I'm sorry. I can verify that and then either make the change as appropriate.
Okay, I'm pretty confident they get electricity to us. They may go off once in a while, but on the second page, on, I guess it's finding 8, it says the lots to the east and west have been heavily cleared of vegetation. And actually, I'm not sure where this came from, but the one to the east is still fairly wooded. I think they would mean the one to the south, which is the one with the residence. But the lot, if you look at the aerial photo, the lot to the east is heavily wooded. So even if we said east, that would be incorrect. So I'd move to change that word east to south.
And I assume the implication there by the word heavily is mean they've been pretty well cleared?
Right, and the one to the east, right on O'Malley, is
Yeah.
you look at it, it's full of trees. And the residential one is fairly well cleared. He has his house and parking and some horse facilities.
Any further changes?
I do on 2A, where it refers to the actual kind of the plan that we were referring to. We actually had two that had the same date. We got one with our first packet that said 5/17/10, and in that one, the antenna was on the south part of the lot, near the residence. When we had our deliberation, we got some new information, and we got a kind of site plan that also seems to read 5/17/10. It's one page and it shrunk down and pretty small, but it shows the antenna towards the O'Malley side to the north. And we were, so at our deliberation, we were discussing the version that had the antenna towards the north. So there needs to be some more clarification on which plan we were referring to. And I would just, I guess, for a motion, I'd just say dated 5/17/10 that was provided in our packet of 913 with the tower on the north side of the lot.
That's the change you propose?
Yes.
Any further changes?
That's all for me.
Okay, is there any discussion on these changes? Okay, then we need a motion to accept this with the changes that you propose, and please include in the motion what you want changed.
Okay, regarding item D1D, Resolution 2010-038, move to approve with the change on A1 to say provide reliable electricity. On page 2, finding 8, to read the lots to the south and west have been heavily cleared. And for condition 2A, on the second line, say view landscape plan and lighting plan dated 5/17/10 that was in our packet of 9/13/10 that showed the tower on the north side of the lot.
Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Pease. Is there any further discussion? Is there any objection? Okay, then we've approved 2010-038. Ms. Pease, you want to get back to what we were discussing previously?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do wish to make a modification or change, correction to the resolution number 2010-037 based on the notes of the meeting, and that is to add a fourth finding, which is there is an expectation that improvements to Terrace Lane would be constructed by others prior to construction of the school, and if not, then the road improvements would be shown as part of the school construction project to show the total costs of the project. And that is one of the findings I made that was in the packet that contained the minutes of the meeting.
Is there any other corrections that you've noticed?
No.
Could you want to put that in a motion?
Yes, I move approval of resolution number 2010-037, as it appears to us on this gold copy with the words Development Area H stricken from the title, and with the addition of a finding A4, consistent with our meeting minutes. And shall I repeat that?
If you would, please.
Please.
There is an expectation that improvements to Terrace Lane would be constructed by others prior to construction of the school, and if not, then the road improvements would be shown as part of the school construction project to show the total costs of the project.
You want to push the button as a motion? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Parks. Any further discussion, Ms. Pease, on that? All right.
Just that is what is shown in the minutes, that's what I spoke to, so I'd like it included.
Any further discussion? Yes, Ms. Yoshimura.
So I have a procedural question. When do we discuss the addition to the minutes to the school?
We've already added those.
Have we added them into the minutes?
Yeah, we've added them in to the agenda this evening.
We didn't give a specific place in the agenda, we just added them to the agenda.
Okay.
And it didn't end up being under minutes, so were you more comfortable with the minutes being approved before we do the resolution, or?
I would be.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I suspend action on my resolution pending approval of the minutes. I guess Mr. Parks needs to second that.
Okay.
Okay, so we've now suspended action temporarily on the
Apologize.
2010-037, and we'll now move to approval of the minutes themselves. And Ms. Yoshimura, if you'd like to take the lead on that.
Right. I would like to, is it a motion that I would like?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion that the supplemental document that staff has prepared in the case of 2010-112 with comments from Mr. Isham, Ms. Pease, and myself, and Mr. Weddleton be added as part of the minutes of the Anchorage School Board and Planning and Zoning Commission joint meeting from October 4th, and that these amended minutes are the minutes that will be passed on to the Assembly.
Ms. Pease, I assume you're seconding that.
Yes.
Okay. The only question I have is these are going to be tidied up a little bit more.
That was, like I said, we only got them Thursday night, and when I got Connie's call, I very quickly did that. If you would make leeway in your motion for me to tidy it like I normally do, it would look much nicer, and I can get that done. The school district will be acting on them November 8th. We'll get them to them this week.
All right. And I further add that staff be allowed to format and edit the additional minutes as deemed fit.
Okay, any further discussion on the addition of the minutes? Ms. Dean, I see you on here. Do you want to discuss anything with this?
Mr. Chair, the only thing I wanted to discuss is that I cannot vote. I cannot give any vote on this.
Understand
That's
that
all.
you were not, you already disclosed that
That's
you
it.
hadn't read it. Very good. Okay, so let the record show that Mr. Phelps is here. And do you have anything to disclose this evening? No. Thank you. Okay, so right before us is the approval of the minutes and the addition of our minutes to the school board minutes. Is there any objection? Okay, those are approved. Now, let's move back to Ms. Pease
I now move for approval of resolution number 2010-037 with the changes that I voiced earlier.
And who do we have? Mr. Parks seconded it. Thank you. Is there any objection? Then that is approved. Okay. Glad people are so patient as we go through this administrative stuff. Okay, we're moving on to our public hearings now. Let me talk a little bit about the public hearings. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Commission in this meeting is during the public hearing, and will ask for public testimony in a case. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established, and those are for petitioners 10 minutes, representatives of groups such as community councils, PTAs, or so forth 5 minutes, and then individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the Commission, and you may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the Commission. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Planning and Zoning Commission takes. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after the Planning and Zoning Commission's final decision. An individual may request written findings from any Commission decision within 7 days. So our first public hearing this evening is case S11812, Snow Raven Properties. And I guess I have a question for staff. Do you want to hear these combined, or do we want to do it separately?
Mr. Chairman, the plat is so straightforward and short, I would just as soon present them both, and then the Commission will just take separate action.
Okay, well, in that case, then I'm going to make some rulings on testimony time since we're combining two cases. And in this case, we'll give the petitioner 15 minutes. We'll give representatives of groups 7 minutes, and we'll give individuals 5 minutes. And that's specifically for this case because we're combining two cases into one. So, staff, let's go ahead and start things off.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the plat, as I said, it's fairly straightforward. You saw this property if you were on the Planning Commission back in 2004. It's Tract F, Girdwood Elementary School subdivision. The applicant back in 2004 obtained a conditional use to develop the property. And with market changes underway now, they have decided they would wish to subdivide the property so that they can develop the currently undeveloped pieces separately and under the new code. The site plan is shown on page 10 of the package, and you can also see the heavy dark lines which separate the tracts on the entire piece of property is Tract F. On the drawing, on the left-hand side of the drawing, if the plat is approved, is Tract 1, and that has 3 existing buildings. That is not part of tonight's case. The middle of the property is proposed Tract 2, and you can see 3 new buildings along the southeast side of that property. That is the subject of tonight's conditional use. And off on the right-hand side at the little point of the triangle, you can see a shaded area. That is proposed Tract 3. That is to remain undeveloped at this time. That is not part of tonight's conditional use either. The department findings and conditions run from page 2 through page 9. As I say, it's very straightforward. The only conditions I would point out to you, because they are items that are still somewhat up in the air, are under the department recommendation and are on page 8, item 11A and B. There's going to need to be a 30-foot common access easement on Tract 1, which will also allow access for Tract 2. That's the whole purpose of it. It's my understanding that the general location of that access point is agreed to, but the paperwork has not all been finalized by the attorneys for the two parties. And item B goes along with that, that Tract 2 is not allowed to have separate access to Hightower Road. So direct vehicular access for Tract 2 is prohibited. Don't have anything else to say about the plat. As I say, unaware of any real issues on it. So I'll move into the conditional use itself, which has a little more of a discussion involved. 87 public hearing notices were mailed for the conditional use. We did receive one letter in opposition. There were also some phone calls expressing concern about various issues. The proposal was presented by the applicant to both the Girdwood Land Use Committee and the Girdwood Board of Supervisors. The Planning Department never received comments from either of those agencies. However, the applicant does have a copy of the Land Use Committee's proposal and recommendations that they would like I believe they would like incorporated into the findings and conditions. This is a conditional use to allow 16 dwelling units to be in 3 buildings on the new proposed Tract 2. The reason it is a conditional use is under the new Girdwood Title 2109, this zoning district, GC6, allows up to 8 dwelling units per acre. With a conditional use, the applicant is allowed to request up to 20 dwelling units per acre, and based on the proposed site plan, the existing density is going to be about 16 dwelling units per acre. Essentially the same site plan is shown on page 3 of this portion of the application. And let me just give you a little bit of the history. Tract F is a little over 3.5 acres. It's adjacent to the Glacier Creek Green Belt and west of the Girdwood Airport. The original approval in 2004 was for 5 buildings, each containing 14 dwelling units. That would have been 70 dwelling units total. Only 3 of the buildings on the west side of the property were constructed, and now due to changes in market conditions, the owners want to subdivide Tract F. And the proposed Tract 2 in the middle of the property will get 3 new buildings, which in effect is a down scaling of the density. They will not be doing 14 units in each building. They'll be doing 2 buildings of 6 units and 1 building of 4 units. The existing conditional use, 2004-080, will continue for what is to become Tract 1. This new conditional use is only for Tract 2, and Tract 3, based on the size and what's proposed for it, at least in the future, is probably only going to need a land use permit. You will not see that again. Street access is to be from Hightower Road. There is an access agreement as part of the plat with the existing Homeowners Association of Tract 1 and the owners of Tract 2 to be parties to. Tract 2 is currently vacant and cleared. It's level. It has sewer and water lines available to it. And rather than going through the general standards of a conditional use, which are all fully or partially met, I would just like to flip to page 9 and do the Girdwood specific standards for development. And I'm going to skip over most of them because they also are either fully or partially met. I'll just highlight a few of them that are either not met or are something that are new under 2109, because I don't believe the Planning Commission has seen a project under 2109 yet. The first item, multifamily projects of more than 10 dwelling units now have to have a play area of at least 1,000 square feet. The applicant has shown an area that exceeds 1,000 square feet. The applicant has shown an area that exceeds 1,000 square feet, so the standard is met. There is a vegetation retention requirement now. 20% of what you find on the property is to be preserved, and at the same time there's a condition that goes along with that, and that is for a minimum of 40% permeable area must be kept on site. This standard is partially met. The permeable surface calculation shows that they do meet the 40%. The 20% is met by the numbers. However, there is an area on the site plan that we'll get to in just a second where some previously existing vegetation has been cleared. and that is item 3 on page 10. In yard setbacks and along street frontages, the code calls for existing vegetation to be retained or replaced. And what we're talking about is the area that faces Glacier Creek. If you take a look back on page 3 at the site plan, you can see an area behind, that is to the south, below the 3 buildings towards the property line, that is a required yard setback, and by the code calls for existing vegetation to be retained or replaced. That standard is not met. That property was cleared, and the applicant has shown landscaping of shrubs and lawn in that area, but by the code, the department does not think that condition is met. So we'll talk a little more about that when we get to the conditions. Lighting, that's per code. Pedestrian circulation. Sidewalks have been discussed at length with the applicant, and a previous site plan did show sidewalks connecting the buildings and connecting out to the public sidewalk on Hightower. The latest iteration of the site plan was addressing some other issues and didn't have the sidewalks in it, so I believe this is something the applicant agrees to. It just wasn't shown on the latest site plan. Item K on page 10, snow management. By the numbers, the applicant does meet the snow storage area. However, many of the areas for snow storage are fairly small, and it may be difficult for a snowplow operator to follow this plan specifically. So what the department would like to do is leave that as it is, but add a condition about snow removal for the property. So there would not just be snow storage on site, there would also be snow removal. Signage for the property, that will be per code. No sign plan has been submitted, but we do know the applicant is proposing a sign along Hightower Road. Item N on page 11, driveway standards. There are a couple of driveways serving the 4 units of the middle building that are excessively long, and traffic would like to see that redesigned. Backup distance in a driveway is limited to less than 25 feet, and these driveways are over 25 feet in length. Excuse me. Trash management, item O on page 11. The code primarily addresses communal dumpsters. However, the applicant wishes to use individual trash cans for each unit. The department has no objection to that. Building design standards, page 12, those items are all generally met. So moving on to the recommendations on page 15, let me just run through a couple of those because they're reflected in some issues from the report itself. Condition number 6, we would like to see the Homeowners Association documents have language regarding both snow storage and a plan for snow removal. Then on page 16 on the conditions, landscaping per AMC 2109-070E along the east side of the property, that is behind the 3 buildings adjacent to the Glacier Creek Greenbelt in the yard setback. The applicant will show you an alternate plan he would like you to consider. Because of the wording in the code, I would like you to strike the last 4 words on condition 10 on page 16. The words are, or obtain a variance. Because of the wording in the code regarding what type of landscaping needs to be in place, we believe the Commission has the authority to choose between 2 proposals. One is the code proposal where the department is saying provide the required landscaping, but if you wish to preserve views, simply plant species of trees that do not grow as tall. And as I mentioned a minute ago, the applicant is proposing shrubs and lawn in that yard setback. Condition 12, this is something you've probably not seen before. This came from the fire department, and it was a late comment, in fact. The only fire hydrant is on the existing development, which is tract 1. So the fire department, and they tell me they have done this before, they would like to see a shared access agreement in the homeowner's documents and on the plat that allows the fire department to use the fire hydrant on Tract 1 if they have to fight a fire on Tract 2. Apparently, in the past, there have been ownership disputes between associations who own a private fire hydrant as to whether or not they would allow the fire department to use it. And condition 13, also on page 16, the driveways serving the four units on the middle building, as just mentioned, those need to be redesigned as the backup distance on them are longer than 25 feet, or in this case, the applicant could apply for a variance for the driveway length. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have. Thank you.
Do any members of the commission have questions for Mr. Barrett? Okay, Ms. Pease.
Yes, Mr. Actually, I withdraw that. I'll wait till after the petitioner speaks. He may answer the question.
Okay. Any further questions for Mr. Barrett? Okay, I just have a couple of clarifications for you. On page 16, item 10, where you talked about or obtain a variance, we wouldn't give the variance tonight, I would assume. It would have to come as a separate application in regards to that landscaping?
Mr. Chairman, the department believes a variance is not necessary because it's a design issue and the language in the code isn't clear. We believe that the Planning Commission can simply choose between the two landscaping designs, one the code requirement and one the applicant will propose to you. So strike those words or obtain a variance. No variance needed.
Okay, I misunderstood you on that one. Okay. And the second question I had was item 12 on the same page. There's an implication here that there is already a shared access agreement. Do we really want to say the shared access or a shared access agreement shall be developed or something like that?
Good point, Mr. Chairman. A shared access agreement, because there is a shared access agreement currently under discussion for the driveway onto Hightower, and the fire hydrant can simply be added in as part of that.
Okay. Any other questions for staff before we go into the petitioner?
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
So, in regards to the proposed condition number 13, the driveway shall be redesigned so that the backup distance is less than 25 feet or obtain a variance. So what you stated on item number 10, so if we wanted to, we can either accept the plan as is, or they would have to request a variance. Is that, and would we be able to give that variance, or is that a separate action?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Shimura, the driveway in item 13, that is a clear code issue, and that would have to go to the zoning board. That would be a separate application and a separate hearing.
Even though this is a conditional use?
That's correct. In the section of the code where this falls, the authority to grant a variance is given to the zoning board.
Any further questions for Mr. Barrett? Okay. Let's go ahead and have the petitioner make their presentation. Again, you have 15 minutes, and please let us know if you want to reserve any time for rebuttal.
Good evening. Whoops. Commission members, planning staff, concerned members of the public. My name is Tom Dreyer, and I'm with S4 Group, and I am representing Snow Raven Properties tonight.
Would you like any time reserved?
I would like to reserve 5 minutes.
Okay, very good.
I think that should do it. And first, I'd like to pass out, it's not the official Land Use Committee and GBOS documents, but it did come from the co-chair of the GBOS. We went to the Land Use Committee in September and got their full approval, and then 2 weeks after that went to the Girdwood Board of Supervisors and got their full approval with some conditions. The conditions that they talk about on page 2 of that handout I just gave you were mostly the same as the conditions that are a part of planning staff's. The one that may be a little different is that number 2, presentation of drainage plans that preserves the Iditarod Trail and protects it from runoff damage. That was dealing with the Trails Committee, and I talked with several people on there, and they were concerned that at first that the Iditarod Trail was too close to close to the east property line, and it ended up being that it actually wasn't. So they were fine with that. There was no possibility of our drainage plan negatively affecting that. And now I'd like to walk you through the project here. Now, is that coming through here? I have an overlay here showing the existing approved Snow Raven project. And here you can see the 3 existing buildings, and overlaid on top of the area that we're proposing tonight. In the darker shade here are the 2 presently approved buildings that have approval for site plan approval. They have sewer plans, water plans, drainage plans, and whatnot. The building footprint that's currently approved is 16,647 square feet. And our proposed plan, the building footprint is 11,367 square feet, or a reduction of about 32%. So the proposed buildings are a reduction in footprint of 32% compared to what is currently approved on that parcel. The currently approved plan has 28 dwelling units approved on it, and our new plan has 16 dwelling units, or a reduction of 42%. Some of the design issues here is that we're trying to make this project as nice as we could. And you can see the existing plan, you basically have building, condo building, pavement, and then building again. Can you all see this when I'm displaying here? Good? Okay. And the view planes coming out of this condominium, the existing building here, are blocked by the mass of this condo and the existing condo over here. And what we have done is to work to break up the mass so that instead of having just building, pavement, and then building again, now we have building, driveway, and landscaping, and then driveway. So if you currently reside in this condominium building here, now your view planes are greatly improved, I think, because instead of just that mass of looking at the other building, now you look through a landscaped area. And this building here has been moved further to the east, so that the view plane from this building here has actually been increased as compared to the existing building. Now, if you can imagine driving into the main access point here, before it was, the view was basically pavement and building. Now with our landscaping island in the middle here, and in this area here, when you first drive in, the mass of the building is broken up by this landscaped area in the middle. And when you're first come in, you're looking in this direction, it creates a lot of complexity between the buildings and the landscape area in this direction. And also when you're looking in this direction. And also for the people that are in these, looking in this direction, the view of the other buildings has been broken up quite a bit. So we were putting a lot of thought into this to try and make it a nicer project, but also still increase most of the requirements of Title 2109. And one is the required snow storage area. On this plan here, we actually have 3,086 square feet of snow storage area, and according to Title 2109, we are required to have 2,325 square feet. So but we actually have 25% more snow storage area than what is required by the new updated code, well, updated in 2005 for Girdwood. So they went through a lot of review to come up with that 20% figure, considering the snowfalls in Girdwood, where typical in Anchorage it might range from, say, 5 to 15%. So we've increased the snow storage area as required by code 25%. Parking, we've increased from code. Code requires us to have 34 parking spaces, and we're showing 37. So that's about a 10% increase. And then that's counting the base parking level and the 20% overflow. We've taken that and then add another 3 parking spaces. The natural vegetation retention by code is 9,083 square feet, and this plan here is actually showing 18,000 square feet of what they classify in Title 2109 as natural vegetation retainage, and it has its own special definition. So we've doubled the area as per code of the natural vegetation retention area from 9,000 to about 18,000 square feet. The drainage in this area, back in 2004, we had an approved drainage plan for the entire site, actually, and the basic flows have still been retained, and Mr. Dave Grenier could speak to that more if he had technical details, but basically it's just been a slight reconfiguration of the parking lot area, but the flows are all in general the same. We basically have just a small amount of flow going excuse me, to Hightower Road, and the rest goes into the Greenbelt area. That is about 300 feet wide or so in this area. This line right here is a scaled line of where the edge of the river is. It goes about right like that. So there's plenty of room for that. The houses that we're putting up here, this here is the rear of the fourplex, and here's the rear of the sixplex. So that'd be along this back property line right here. So what you have is each unit has a door on the first floor from the garage, and the whole first floor is a garage. So then, and most of them have room for 2 cars inside, the stacking type style. And then there's enough room. They've added in a working washer and dryer in the garage, and then another washer and dryer up in the bedroom level on the 3rd floor. But getting back to this here, so here, this door here opens up directly into the small backyard of this unit and then onto the greenbelt zone that's about 300 feet wide. Excuse me. And the views all along here, each person here has just an incredible view looking out over towards Mount Alyeska and across the river. And so that is the reason that we did not think it'd be really something the homeowners would want to put tall landscape in here. We're completely fine with doing the shorter landscaping as shown in the proposal that's in the packet. Okay, and with that, I guess my time is up for, I'll reserve those 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Go ahead and use your machine so I can see. Okay, Ms. Yoshimura?
Thank you, Mr. Dreyer, for your presentation. What's the plan for Track 3?
Track 3 is about 800 square feet or so, and someone could put a duplex on there, a single family, excuse me, or a duplex.
And that would require a land use permit. Is that what was said previously by Mr. Minor?
I think that with the current code,
Okay.
I'd switch to with the new code, I think it would be a regular building
So
permit.
that potentially has a duplex.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Pease?
Yes, through the chair. Mr. Dreyer, I would like a little clarification on the snow storage and the natural vegetation. You stated that there was 18,000, no, I can't remember what the snow storage is compared to the requirement, but it's over the requirement. We can see in the pictures that some of those snow storage areas either have vegetation in them or are really skinny. And I guess this is partly for Mr. Barrett, too. Mr. Barrett, you noted that there needed to be, based on your staff's recommendations, for practical snow storage, a minimum 8-foot dimension. How much of this snow storage that's shown meets that practical minimum?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Pease, we didn't make that calculation. It's not an adopted standard yet. That'll be coming with the new Title 21 next year, that minimum dimensions for snow storage will be 8 by 8, but I did not make the calculation to compare it to this one.
Okay. Then I guess I'll ask you a little later, Mr. Barrett, on what sort of specific language would be necessary for snow removal in the conditions, given that you're pretty sure the dimensions shown are not adequate. One more question for Mr. Dreyer through the chair. What are the dimensions on the children's play area? They're not shown. It says 1,000 square feet, but they're not shown anywhere.
Yeah, I'd have to actually scale that out.
Okay. And so there was one more question. Do any of these snow storage areas that you show have a vehicle barrier that would protect the preserved vegetation or the landscape vegetation?
Do they have, no.
It looks as if the snow storage goes right up in under the vegetation in a lot of instances.
Yeah, they don't go over the top of it, it's just next to it, which kind of makes sense because you want the snow to, when it melts, to go into that in the greenbelt area.
Well, right, except how do you protect the vegetation when this snow's piled up 7 feet or 8 feet high and you've got, trees that may not be any higher than that?
Well, it's common that in the code we're required to have the 20% snow storage in an area, and that is what we've shown. There is some areas that are small, but there's still areas that will be used as snow storage, and they're still within the, even if you took the big chunked-in areas, we'd still be within the 20%. Because what you see here, we're 25, excuse me again, is that we're 25% over for our snow storage calculations anyway on this site plan.
Yes, what I'm specifically asking on now, though, is how compatible is the snow storage with the preserve the vegetation areas, and I guess I'll be looking to Mr. Barrett if there's anything in code or possibly needed in conditions to make that compatible. I don't know. I didn't look up the code for that particular question, but it's how do you separate snow storage from vegetation? That's all. Thank you.
Ms. Yoshimura?
Thank you, through the chair. Mr. Dreyer, I sort of like your site plan, and I like this large island of vegetation in front of building number 4, but as a result of that, you do have long driveways. So I'm sure you've had some discussions with staff about this comment for item number 13. Have you come up with any possible resolution that doesn't destroy the island? I mean, obviously, you could move the building. If you didn't have the island, you could move the building up and everything would just line up in a very linear fashion, but that's not as aesthetically attractive as what you have on this plan, at least in my opinion. So how do you get around item number 13?
Well, if taken to the highest extent of the meaning, then every parking lot would end up looking like this, just a rectangle. And that's really not the intent of the code. I think the intent of the code in that particular title was more for a group or a parking lot, say, serving a supermarket or something like that. And it's not really intended for an area like this, where aesthetics are involved. And then there's also some debate, and I would like to debate that now, is that the backup distance from the parking space in front of the garage is only 25 feet from there to there. And so if you take a typical R6 lot, say, in a nice area, the front setback is 50 feet from the front garage. And so why should people on a large lot be able to enjoy a longer type driveway and these people can't? And there's a lot of verbiage in the new code that I think these kind of issues are going to pop up quite a bit, is that the intent is not actually specified that well in the code. So I contend that these are within code because there's only 25 feet from the actual parking space that is in front of the driveway. And these areas right here are pretty valuable to the people there, because if we just wipe this out and pave it, it's just not going to be as aesthetic as the design we have now. We have this kind of little cubby cove here. You have some landscaping here, a little green area there, and it has some value. And I don't agree that it has to be a variance. And I think if we have to go through that kind of process every time we try to make something nicer for the people that are buying these units, then something needs to change. Thank you.
Any further questions for the petitioner? Okay, thank you, sir. You've got 5 minutes for your rebuttal.
Thank you.
All right, is there anybody that would wish to testify? We're officially opening the public hearing now, so anybody who would wish to testify, please come forward. Is there anybody that wishes to testify? Very good. Please state your name for the record.
Hello, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Sharon Walsh-Webster. I'm the president of the Snow Raven Village Condominium Association, the 3 existing buildings.
Okay, fine. Well, you've got 7 minutes.
Thank you. I won't need 7 minutes. I just want to let you know we have been having discussions with the petitioners for the last several months, certainly since the beginning of this year. And in our springtime meeting, our association did vote to support this development subject to coming up with a suitable access agreement. We're still negotiating that agreement, but we don't have any showstoppers so far that I can see. So just to let you know, that's the situation, and if you have any questions of me, I'm happy to answer.
Ms. Yoshimura?
Ms. Webster, in your professional opinion, what do you feel about these driveways?
In my professional opinion, for some of the members of the commission who don't know, I actually work in the municipality, and I do need to state that I'm here strictly as a member of the Homeowners Association tonight. The driveways haven't really come up for our association. It hasn't been an issue. What we've been most happy about is the vegetation that, I guess I'll come over here. Some of the original plans didn't have this area right here, and we're very happy to see that because we're very concerned about our parking getting poached by visitors to the other associations. So we're very pleased with this, and we'd rather, the driveways don't mean as much to us as saving this, so if that was a problem, we'd rather prefer the longer driveways. Now, I know the traffic department has codes that they have to adhere to, and they're just stating what the code says.
Thank you.
Mr. Weddleton?
So on this access agreement, is it a benefit to your homeowners association to have this additional access, or what would be some of the holdups in your agreement?
It's most of our members have a pretty well-defined means of access. You can see that, for example, the building that I'm in is the one closest to this development, building number, it'd be at the top of the curve there, top of the page. And our garages actually access off of the other access. You can see them there on the south end of the building. So the main use of this other parking is for our overflow parking and our guests, and we each have one assigned space in the building and then one assigned space outside the building. So if you have two cars, you end up using the outside space. If your kids come down to visit, they end up parking in the outside space. So it is a concern at busy times, all those spaces do fill up. But in terms of the second access out to Hightower, I suppose some of the people that are in that parking, northernmost parking, would use it, but right now it's not. I couldn't see very many other people coming all the way up to there to use that access and come back in.
Was that like trees now and people?
Actually, it was used as a construction access prior to construction of when the other buildings were being built. And right now there's a berm there just preventing, let's call it, we sometimes have campers and people that really don't understand this private property, and it's nice to have it burned off now, but, once it's more developed, that shouldn't be an issue.
Kind of one more. Looking at the snow storage issue, what do you do in your home? Do you haul snow off-site?
Frankly, right now, we use a lot of the property where these houses are going to be. But we've had discussions with our snow removal contractor right now, and generally we use some of the south end of the bigger parking lot, although we really don't wish to use very much of that because it takes up spaces. So our discussions we've had this year were generally between the southernmost new building and the existing building, we tend to push it off towards that way, which is nice drainage-wise too, because it tends to drain off towards the creek, so that helps. We do get a lot of snow. Last year we had kind of a mountain in the south parking lot, and it's just something that we have to deal with.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions? Yeah, I have one question. Mm-hmm. Do you own the fire plug that was in the discussion?
That has come. I had 2 calls into AWU, and they didn't hear back today. I think the gentleman I need to talk to was out today. But my understanding is, yes, it does belong to the Snow Raven Association, and that we're responsible for it. We can have agreements with AWU to, maintain it for you, but I'm told that they belong to our association, and they're our problem to take care of. So we're sorting that out right now.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to testify? Please state your name for the record.
My name is Cynthia Wilson. I live at Snow Raven Condos, and I'd like to say good evening, and I'm happy to have this opportunity to speak my concerns. Unfortunately, the LUC Land Use Committee was postponed in July, and then reinstated. I guess the presentation that Hallquest had of this new concept was done in September, unbeknownst to anybody, at least in the community. Our board members didn't know about it. We didn't know about it as members of the association. So obviously everything passed with no objection whatsoever. And I was disappointed to find that that was the only time that I could vote my opinion, because I am a resident of over 1 year, although I've been there 4 years. So now I have the opportunity to speak to you all. My husband also is going to follow me after this. He's got more of the facts. I have more of the concerns. Basically, these objections that we do have to some of our concerns should may be more of a surprise to Hallquest now, unfortunately, because we didn't have a chance to state them earlier. Paul and I feel that that the developer should be responsible for not only developing a good and safe development, but one that also brings into the concepts of a community and brings harmony to the neighbors nearby. We have problems, we think, with snow storage in the future. We also have some concerns about not having any dumpsters and bears that are quite prevalent in the Girdwood Chugach mountain area. So we would like these things taken into concern and make it for a much more harmonious development between us, the existing development, and the new development. If these concerns are not really considered now, then we will have to try to negotiate with the HOA of the new complex, and how long it will take to develop that, and when that will be sold out and then it is turned over to an HOA could be a matter of a couple of years. So I appreciate having this opportunity to speak with you, and I know my husband would like to say a few things. Thank you. Are there any questions, by the way?
Yeah, any questions? Yes, Ms. Pease.
Yes, Ms. Wilson. I'm glad you mentioned garbage. What do you currently do? Do you have individual cans, and do you need, for practical reasons or legal reasons, do you keep them inside or outside?
No, we actually have a dumpster that serves all 3 buildings. Mm-hmm. Because of the poaching situation, which occurs quite frequently in Girdwood, we've had to up it from 1 dump a week to 2, which costs us an extra $1,000 or so. And that's a big concern, is that people will not be removing their garbage, especially wet garbage, and taking it back home with them. If they choose to put it in garbage cans, I did check, and I think I'm correct in saying that they do not have to be in bear-proof containers. Therefore, they would put it out at the end of the driveway possibly, and maybe pickup day is 1 day a week. You would not want that sort of garbage attracting bears sitting out there for 2 or 3 days waiting to be picked up. So it's a safety concern, as well as protecting the poaching of our dumpster.
And by poaching, you mean people using them, non-homeowners using your dumpsters, is that what you mean?
Well, other people that shouldn't be using our dumpster, they are.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Mr. Weddleton?
I had more thoughts on that trash. So are these units mostly people who live there full-time in your area? And
our building happens to be the most full-time residents of all the buildings, but the building's also allowed to be rented out, also the units. So the renters can use, dispose of their garbage when they're done with their week or whatever they rent it for. And so it should be just the 3 buildings using our dumpster, but unfortunately it's not. It's impossible to police, really.
Well, I was thinking if it were weekend users, then you spend the weekend there, you fill your trash can, and you haul it out, and pickups on Wednesday, then you have, I don't know what the dates are, but then it would sit for a couple of days. But if they're full-time people, typically you just bring it out the morning and pick up.
In a dumpster?
Well,
you mean
trash can, if you have a trash can. I mean, at my house, we just bring it out Wednesday morning, and it works fine. But you say that people leave them out for days on end? Is that?
Well, I'm saying that's a possibility. I know they don't collect every day of the week, so, and I did not call to find out what day they do collect, but, that's a possibility. You could sit there for 2 or even 3 days during the summertime. And there was a black bear around there, even with our dumpster. I looked out the window one day and saw the rear end of a really large dog, and then I took a second look and realized it was a black bear.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Parks?
Question about snow removal. You said you have issues with snow removal now in that area. Do you have snow removal issues now in your area?
No, we don't.
Do you consider if they put this new project in or when they put it in, you're going to have snow removal issues?
I think they will have snow removal issues. I'm not sure where they'll put the excess snow. I know that we have sort of devised sort of a newer plan, like Sharon had said. They talked to the gentleman that plows our area, and they have come up with a better solution where to put the snow so it's not piled up in front of our windows and things like that. But, snow is an issue out there. It can dump all of a sudden a lot of feet. You can have a 10, 12-foot high snowbank. And definitely these skinny little areas that they're showing on their plan, after a while you're not going to be able to shovel to the top of it to even place any snow up to the top.
But you don't see that as an issue to your project?
We don't really have a big issue like that, no.
Thank you.
Ms. Yoshimura?
So back to the garbage. I am a little bit familiar with your building, and so you have a stall garage. Is that not correct?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
So it really is, a dumpster really is a necessity for you because your unit is not connected to a garage, so you have no capability of storing a garbage can in your garage. Is that what most residents don't store garbage in their garage stall?
No, we have a common garage that houses right, so you couldn't really put a garbage can inside that garage and have place to park your car and turn around space and everything like that.
Right. So I think the difference between the building that you're living in and the buildings that are designed here are the fact that these have really large garages and they have the ability to put the garbage can in their garage and then bring it out on the day, whether it's a Monday or a Wednesday or whatever, to bring it out on the day that the garbage truck is going to come and pick it up. So I know that that's a plan that's working, a new plan in part for recycling that's working around town, at least in the area where I live, and that seems to be a pretty effective way. I agree with you that you need to have dumpsters if you have a stall garage, but when you have a self-contained garage attached to a unit, I think the garbage can is aesthetically more attractive.
I see your point, but a lot of these places are being sold as or being promoted as a weekend resort or weekend place to keep, to ski, so you can ski Alyeska. And I believe it's almost 1,000 people that live in Girdwood that are just weekenders, not full-timers. And so, I mean, if they put if the garbage pickup is on Wednesday and they leave on Sunday or Monday morning, then that garbage can would sit out there in that driveway, especially in the summertime, and attract, have an odor to it and possibly attract bears.
Any further questions from Ms. Wilson? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Paul Wilson. I'm in building A, 340 Hightower Road. I'm here to voice my objections on the building layout and the problems that it will create after the project is completed to the existing HOA association, which is ourselves, and the future HOA association. As what has been explained, track F is 3.59 acres with 3 existing buildings. And to complete the project, originally 2 more buildings would be built on the remaining 2 acres. And that And now, Hallquist is planning to construct 3 buildings on 1 acre. And that is a big difference. It was mentioned that there's a reduction of 32% in the building space, but what's not mentioned is a reduction in 50% of the footprint or land that it's going to be put on. The proposed configuration forms Track 3. This could be used for future development for a duplex, a commercial building, or a future site which would add another building. Track 3 makes the configuration of Track F smaller for the construction of 3 buildings with 16 units, resulting to under 45,000 square feet, or approximately 1 acre for 3 buildings, with 10-foot spacing between the buildings. This, to me, is an increase in density, not a decrease. It also results in small areas of storage, snow storage, around the driveways and buildings. I believe it was mentioned they have a 25% cushion over snow requirements of storage, but as you can see on the map and what has been discussed, these spaces that they're counting are so small, the first snowfall, you're not going to be able to put any more snow in these areas. So I'm glad to hear Al talk about an 8x8 requirement in the future, and maybe this can be incorporated into this plan. The snow storage area is completely, in my opinion, inadequate for a Girdwood snowfall. We have snow that piles, we had snow piled up to our second floor deck last winter, and it takes a huge area to store the snow. Another item is the visitor parking. It's possibly the visitor parking is 1 to 2 spaces undersized. And these spaces that could be used for visitor parking are shown as snow storage. We've talked about the garbage plan, which is going to be garbage cans. My wife has mentioned that creates 2 problems. One is the use of our own dumpster, which is already a problem, and with safety problems with storage in cans when people aren't at their units, gone for the week or put garbage out to be picked up during the week. And in the summertime, which was mentioned, we do have bears around there, and it's just not safe. And we're also near a school system with a lot of children that are walking the sidewalks morning and night. Our suggestion would be the removal of Track 3. As you can see, it takes quite a bit of chunk in the corner. This would be used, or could be used, for the space for the 3 buildings. This would give more areas for snow storage and parking, resulting in a more comfortable village atmosphere after the developer has completed the project. Or the other alternative, if they insist on keeping Track 3, is to build less units, which I believe is not acceptable to them. In conclusion, the conditions will allow 3 buildings on approximately 1 acre and with 3 possible buildings if they use Track F on 1 1/4 acres versus the original plan for completion of 2 buildings on 2 acres. My opinion is it's just too crowded, and we'd look for your support for changes. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions? Mr. Ruttleton.
I guess I did the math a little bit different, but I suppose I'd let Mr. Dreher respond to some of that. So nothing now, thanks.
Any further?
No.
That's all, okay. Ms. Pease?
I guess likewise, my question has to do with the math and how much would be added by adding in tract F. So I'll pair my question with Mr. Weddleton for Mr. Dreyer. So no.
Is there a question about the 2 acres versus 1?
Just the math. It says here that tract 3 is 8,800 square feet and tract 2 is about 45,000. So that
Yes.
doesn't add up to 2 acres.
No, it doesn't, but they're using a lot of tract F for their driveways and development other than the buildings.
Say that again?
The difference is that they're using, the driveway takes some of that area. I'm not sure if I'm
The new
looking at
access
that
way?
correctly. Pardon me?
The new access from Hightower? Is that what you're referring to?
Say that again. I'm sorry. We were talking about the 2 acres versus 1 that is now
Right,
existing for the construction of the 3 buildings.
Well, I didn't see where 2 acres was available after the development that you're in was done. It looks, according to this, that about 53,000 square feet was available for the current project, whether it was 2 buildings or 3.
I got my 45,000 square feet away from the draft that we have, unless there's something different now. They showed 44,900 some square feet, which is very close to an acre.
Right, no, I understand but if you add tract 3 back in, you don't get to 2 acres. You get to 1 1/5 acres, roughly.
I'd have to look at that again, but with the 3 buildings built on tract F, you're saying there isn't 2 acres remaining.
I'm not sure, is tract F? We have tract 2 and 3 that we're looking at. Oh, so tract F was the combined? Oh, all 3, the whole thing is tract F? Okay, well, I'll muddle through this. Thank you.
Okay.
Any further questions, Mr. Wilson? Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else would like to testify? Last call for testifying from the public. Okay, let's get on with our rebuttal.
Okay. First off, I'd like to go through a couple of conditions, and I actually have a question for staff. On the plating packet, condition number 9, enter into a subdivision agreement with prior development to install landscaping and make improvements required. It seems like that those should be on the conditional use side of the, and they're already covered, those two, 9A and 9B, already covered in the conditional use packet. So I would like to delete 9A and 9B. And then on the conditional use, on the conditional use side, we are fine with all of them except, as previously stated on number 10, install landscaping as adjusted, as provided by the petitioner. I don't remember what sheet that was on in here now. Great. On On what sheet is that, Greg? Yeah. And the deletion of, so, okay, on item number 10, install landscaping as per adjusted on packet page 47, and then delete number 13 on the driveway issue. On the issue of garbage, I guess if you have a condominium building with joint garages, then you need to do a dumpster type of deal, but it's generally considered an upgrade on single garages. If you can have individual garbage cans, it's much cleaner and eco way to do it, and anyone that's renting it out is going to have a manager that would take care of making sure the garbage cans are in and out on the proper days. And the bear issue is very big everywhere, including in Anchorage. But it is basically considered an upgrade. It's cleaner, and there's not the big mess of a dumpster out there. On the issue of snow storage, again, we go by code as well as we can, and when we're given a 20% number that has gone through extensive public review through the rewrite of Title 21 and, in this case, Title 2109, we expect all the conditions and snow conditions that are specific to Girdwood have been taken care of, have been considered in staff coming up with that 20% number, and we comply with it. Again, 25% over, even taking out the smaller pieces. The smaller pieces are there because that's what they'll end up being used for anyway. Okay. Anything I'm missing? And I guess with that, I will close my presentation.
Okay.
Probably missed something, but I can't.
There's some questions here from some of the commission members.
Sure.
Mr. Weddleton.
So you don't have an access agreement yet. What happens if we were to approve the replat and the conditional use, but you don't have, and you can't come to an agreement on the access? Then what happens?
Well, the plat is, there is a condition on the plat, I think, that requires the access agreement.
So if you don't get one, the plat goes away and you're back to one big tract?
Correct. It was, yeah, if that access agreement doesn't have, because it's a requirement on the plat.
Okay. I have a couple more, but we can take turns.
Well, let's let you go ahead, and then let Ms. Pease will follow up.
Well, just a couple points follow. Did you make notes when Mr. Wilson was talking? He had some, he had referred, I guess, at some point before you were going to replat, there were 2 acres available to do those 2 large structures on, and now you've reconfigured it and there's not 2 acres. I didn't, maybe you can, was there ever 2 acres more?
No, the total is around 45,000 plus the 8. So it's about 53,000 total, which is about 1.25 acres. So even if you add in a duplex on the end, say if someone built a duplex there, that'd be 18. So you're still within the 15, probably drops it down a little bit into probably the 14 or 13 DUA range overall.
And how many units were there in the original proposal? With
the 2 total was 70.
There were 70. And now there's how many?
There's 5 times 14 units.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ms. Pease?
Through the chair, Mr. Drawit, I was hoping you would offer some creative snow storage solution because I'm concerned that it just isn't there. You mentioned that Girdwood has thought this through, but Mr. Barrett has said the dimensions, minimum dimensions, haven't yet been decided, so it's not completely spelled out for you. How would you feel about snow hauling?
I think as most Girdwood people know, snow hauling is pretty difficult in Girdwood. I think the closest dump might be snow dump or snow storage site might be in Anchorage.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. So on-site snow storage.
I'm not sure on that. That's what I've been led to believe, and I wouldn't want to say that's for sure a fact. Thank you.
Okay. And related to that, question for Mr. Barrett. Mr. Barrett, if we have concerns about whether snow storage can be met on the site, and we consider the plat first to reduce the size of the site, knowing that we have concerns about snow storage, how do we deal with that?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Pease, by the numbers, I think the snow storage can be met. I think our concern, the department concern, is that because many of the areas allocated for it are small, narrow, unusually shaped, a snowplow operator is not going to take the time to follow the snow plowing plan. He's essentially going to shove it in one or two different, maybe three different directions and just pile it up as conveniently as he is able, without taking the time to neatly pack it into a space that is 8-10 feet long and 2 feet wide. So that's our issue. And because an 8x8 area or a series of 8x8 areas would take up a lot of the property, we're not really certain that the condition could be met without a snow hauling plan of some type. And we've had snow hauling and other conditional uses and rezonings that within 24, 48, 72 hours of X amount of snowfall, the applicant has to provide for the snow to be hauled away from the areas on site where it is stored.
Through the chair, are you aware of snow dump sites in Girdwood?
I'm not. I'm sorry.
Okay. And then any further thoughts on my earlier question about whether barriers are required where snow storage adjoins required landscape vegetation? If the Girdwood Code is silent on it, is there an example from the Anchorage Code? And I looked in my book and couldn't find
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Pease, snow storage is simply not allowed. That is in the code, in the Girdwood section, is not allowed in areas of required landscaping. So whether it is foundation plantings or perimeter landscaping or landscaping required because of the size of a parking area, it's a code violation if they store snow there and they'd be written up. It makes probably good sense to have some sort of a wheel stop where appropriate to keep landscaping from being pushed into areas of required landscaping, certainly.
Thank you.
Mr. Parks.
I have a question about the long driveways, and it appears to me that the reason the long driveways are there is because you need additional parking in the driveways and then access to them because of the way you designed it. How are you going to handle that if that's as the variance piece of that? Is there a design criteria that you can use to change that?
Well, I don't feel that we need a variance for that. I disagree with staff on that particular issue. I think the Planning and Zoning Commission is well within their rights to say that the proposed design is acceptable to the Commission. Because this is only 25 feet behind, say, if you have a car parked in front of the garage there, it's only 25 feet from your back bumper to the edge of the driveway. That's the distance between here, well, it's the length of a car. It's not a long driveway by any means, really. That piece of code there is more for that other type of parking lot. So, yeah, excuse me.
Here's my concern.
Mm-hmm.
My concern in that particular driveway configuration that you have now is snow removal, that driveway is going to get very small very quickly because you don't have any place to push it, not adequately. You could move it with a loader probably fairly easily. Most of the people in that area do not move with loaders. And my concern is the driveway is going to narrow. And when it narrows, you're not going to have a turning radius. And when you don't have a turning radius, you don't have visibility. And you're parking people in those lots that aren't going to be able to get in and out of those driveways easily. If it were a Sunday afternoon in July, not an issue. But as snow begins to grow, you're going to lose turning radius considerably in there. And that, in my opinion, needs to be addressed, and I think that's what they're trying to address with a 25-foot driveway. I have a 50-foot driveway in my home, and I can tell you after about the 10th snow, that driveway narrows from 20 feet to about 11 feet, and I move my own snow, and I have a loader. So believe me, I know exactly how that goes. Is that a concern? And if it is a concern that I would have, how are you going to address that concern?
Well, I think it's a blend of aesthetics, because for one, there's quite a few notes in here that staff has come up with. Say, take condition number 11C, which states the municipality will not now and will not in the future accept the maintenance of the snow plowing, et cetera, et cetera. And there's notes on the plat, and there's also notes on the conditional use that the snow plowing is the responsibility of the HOA. A well-run HOA is going to take care of the snow plowing, period. But whatever it takes to clear that driveway, to clear the area in front of the garage and the walks, will be taken care of by the HOA and the agreement with the owners. So to me, I think that there's not any risk to the city, there's not any risk to the greater community, and all we're trying to do here is just make it a nicer living environment for people. And living in a ski town, they have more snow, it's just going to be one of those things you have to put up with. But the snowplow operator has to put up with. He's got to get the job done, period. I would really hate to kind of debase the plan for that aspect.
Mr. Weddleton?
Sorry, I got distracted there. I forgot what the question I had punched the button for, but sorry.
Okay, you think about it. Think about it. I'll go to Ms. Yoshimura.
Well, I just wanted to confirm that the proposed access road is going to be maintained privately by the homeowners association. Is that correct?
Yes, it will be.
All right. And so will these driveways.
Yes, they will be.
And that'll be a contract with the homeowners association, private contract, probably not with a loader, someone with one of those things on the front of their trucks. And, you know, I feel that this is the responsibility of the homeowners association to properly manage this snow. And if they don't do a good job, they'll hear from the condominium owners, and then they'll take some action as a homeowners association. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Mr. Weddleton, did you remember?
No, but thinking on that, to some extent that's true, but I think part of our responsibility is to not put future home buyers in a position where they have a tough decision. And I'm also afraid that their solution would be to shove that snow right into the existing vegetation, and certainly that play area is going to be a very tempting place to pile snow.
Okay, let's save the discussion for when we get into that. Okay. Ms. Please? Okay. Any further questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions before I close the public hearing of staff? Okay, public hearing is closed. The matter now rests with the board. We're going to take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll get back and make the decision this evening. Call the meeting back to order, and our procedures that we're going to follow on these two cases will have to deal with the platting requirement first, and then if that passes, then we'll deal with the conditional use. So I will take a positive motion in case S11812-1.
No one else jumped in.
Thank you, Ms. Pease. Thank you, Mr. Weddleton.
In the matter of
case S11812-1 to subdivide this tract. I move for approval with the department recommendations on pages 7, 8, and 9 of our packet.
Okay, Ms. Pease, you want to speak to your motion, please?
Yes. I am looking forward to a little bit of discussion from my fellow commissioners, but as proposed, I am not going to support my motion, and my concern is that this land is zoned at a moderate to high density of up to 20 DUA, and this is an area which is dependent on vehicles, so a certain amount of any dense development has to be given to parking, garage space, driveways, turnarounds, as we've seen with this plat. And you have that latitude when you have a larger lot. So as you get smaller and smaller with your lot size, it gets harder to fit those surface uses onto the lot. And there are, I guess I should ask Mr. Barrett what the height limit is here, but in this case, I don't believe there's an intention or a design standard that lets the units be achieved with a really tall building. So given the concerns of parking, snow storage, turnarounds, and the density, I'm concerned about reducing the size of this lot and achieving the layout that is workable. So I'll be opposing it, but I am going to listen carefully to my fellow commissioners' discussion before voting.
Okay, Ms. Dean?
Through the chair, I will be supporting the motion. I think the conditional use permit is where you pick up that density and make changes to the density. I don't think it should be done at the plat level. I think if you were to take B and C and add them together at over 1.25 acres, that's a fair size lot to put 8 units on. Looking at the conditional use permit, that's a separate issue, and we're not voting on that at the moment, if I'm not mistaken, to increase the density.
Mr. Phelps?
Well, actually, I agree with the comments made by the previous commissioner in general. I intend to support the motion as well, too. I guess I wasn't as concerned by the testimony that I heard. The staff recommendation is such that they recognize that the actual amount of development is lower than it was in the previously approved development, that they believe to be consistent with the intent of the comprehensive plan in that area. And in terms of the snow removal issue, that to me is a responsibility of the homeowners. And in terms of driveway length, that is not a concern that I have, because from my perspective, that's not inordinate long. So I guess I don't see the same design issues that Commissioner Pease does. And I also agree that this is not really an issue to be dealt with in terms of the plat. It really is an issue in the conditional use. And we should really be taking the conditional use issue first before the plat.
Ms. Yoshimura?
I intend to support the motion for the plat and also for the conditional use. One of the things that has not been, I think, discussed here is the difficulty that it is in the development community right now for the financing of condominium development. And to take a 14-unit building that has a stall garage and is 3 stories and must be 100% complete in order to, before you can sell a unit, is just, in today's marketplace, a very high-risk endeavor as far as the market is concerned, and impossible to get as far as financing is concerned. So I think this lower density, the 2 6s and the duplex, or the 2 6s and the 4-plex units, provide an opportunity to develop this property at a lower density and provide an alternative type of product for this community at a price point that is going to be more accessible. And I think as a planning commission, not just as a zoning commission, but as a planning condition, we cannot shut ourselves out from what is the real market and the financial and economic circumstances that builders and developers have to live with in today's market. And I think this is an excellent site plan. I think it is much more aesthetically pleasing than to have 5 14-unit, 3-story structures on one lot. That's nothing but driveways and asphalt. I think they've made a real attempt to, number one, meet the market, number two, work within the financial conditions that are available for speculative development in this marketplace, and to provide a building that is aesthetically attractive, as well as making an attempt to deal with drainage and to create a site plan that is more aesthetically pleasing than a commercial parking lot. So I will be supporting both the plat and the conditional use.
Just remind you, we're voting on the plat right now.
I know. I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry.
Bite your tongue. Okay, Mr. Parks.
I, too, will be supporting this platting. I, too, see that this is a increase or a decrease in density and an increase in use, and I do think it's probably the right use for this particular property.
Anybody else have any comments? Okay, well, I get to close the thing then, I guess. I will be supporting it. I feel as though we have to keep the conditional use totally separate from the S document, and it appears to meet all the requirements for a platting operation, so I will be supporting it. So since there are disagreement, yes, Ms. Pease?
I am going to be swayed by my fellow commissioners that the platting decision should be held separate from the conditional use, so I won't be supporting my motion.
You will or won't be?
Won't.
You won't be supporting?
I'll be approving the plat.
Okay, all right. Well, then, that doesn't appear like there's any objection, but I will still ask, is there any objection? Okay, the plat is approved. All right, now let's move on to the conditional use. I need a positive motion.
Swallow this monster.
Mr. Weddleton, thank you, and Ms. Pease, second.
Wait, this looks like one for Commissioner Phelps, but he seemed to I'll throw some out here. Regarding case number 2010-065, conditional use for 16 dwelling units, move for approval with the recommendations provided by the department in our in the staff report, starting on page 14. And I would ask that Mr. Barrett offer some wording on number 10. We had, in his presentation, talked about an alternative landscape plan that would be shown to us. We didn't see that, so Mr. Barrett had some wording that could replace 10.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Weddleton, yes, Condition 10 would read, install landscaping per AMC 2109070E along the east property line adjacent to Glacier Creek Greenbelt, comma, or substitute the plan discussed by the applicant and staff, which essentially is for shrubs and lawn in the Glacier Creek, in the yard setback facing Glacier Creek, and add trees per the discussion with the applicant and staff around the front side of the building. Hope that's not too general.
That sounds good to me, and I will make that part of my motion.
Any other changes, Mr. Weddleton?
No, that's...
Yes, I believe we changed in regards to condition 12, we changed that to A, is that correct? That was your recommendation, Mr. Barrett? Okay.
I accept that.
Okay, Ms. Yoshimura.
Through the chair, I have a friendly amendment, which is to delete item number 13. We've had a lot of discussion about these driveways and the benefits and the possible detriments of them, but I agree with Mr. Phelps that this is a matter to be taken care of by the Homeowners Association and the company that they hire to do the snow plowing. And I think that I much prefer to have these landscaped areas, particularly now with the enhanced trees that are going to be placed in the front of the building. I think this island, this V-shaped area in front of building number 4, which are the only areas where the long driveways are, adds aesthetically to the streetscape and, as Mr. Dreyer pointed out, provides a nice aesthetic landscape buffering from the other higher density buildings. So I would like to offer, as a friendly amendment, the deletion of condition number 13.
Do you accept that, Mr. Weddleton?
Yes.
And let's see, who was the second? Ms. Pease, do you accept that?
Yes.
Okay. So 13 is deleted in its entirety. Ms. Pease?
Yes, I would like to propose a couple of friendly amendments. The first is pretty simple. Add the dimensions of the children's play area to the site plan prior to approval.
I accept that.
And on condition 6, I would like to, I want to take that back. I guess I have a question, but before I'll make my proposal and then ask Mr. Barrett to speak to whether it's possible. Mr. Barrett, given that the proposal would be to remove from condition 6 the sentence that language regarding snow removal shall be included in the association covenants, and replace that with the homeowners association is responsible for snow storage on site. My question to Mr. Barrett is, if there are no approved snow storage areas, is it reasonable to, expect that there would be development of a snow storage area? Or let's put it this way, do snow storage areas all require the kind of permit that we reviewed here a few weeks ago?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Pease, no, individual snow storage areas for a property like this have no snow review standards. They will be looked at by PM&E for drainage, but other than that, no. And of course, they'll be looked at by code for, are they in a required landscaping area or taking up parking spaces, but not a separate permit, no.
Okay, then I withdraw that one. But I would like to propose a different friendly amendment, which is to calculate snow storage areas as those areas with greater than an 8-foot minimum dimension.
What does that mean?
That means that these areas between driveways that are 2 feet wide are not considered snow storage.
Just to clarify, so you not 8 square feet, because that could be 4 feet by 2. You mean minimum 8 feet on the side? Is that
Right.
what we've been discussing? So calculate snow storage areas with minimum 8 foot per side? Is that
Yes.
what you're- Yeah, I'll accept that.
Okay, and since you were the seconder, Ms. Pease, I would assume that you accepted also.
Yes. That's all.
Okay, now, just for clarification, you want to leave 6 as it reads?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, so is that in addition to 6 then? Or was that an
Yeah,
addition?
that could be added to number 6 rather than a new condition.
So a final sentence then?
It would probably go in front of the sentence that talks about animal-proof garbage containers.
Okay.
There are 2 sentences on snow, and this would be the 3rd sentence.
Ms. Yoshimura?
I'm going to object to that amendment because I feel that it is too prescriptive.
You really didn't have a choice on this one because it's...
Or no?
Yeah, you didn't have to vote yes or no on the actual
Right.
item.
I get to talk about it?
Well, you can... It's been accepted as a friendly amendment. Now, you can make a motion to delete that friendly amendment.
All right.
If you can get the support for that.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to delete that friendly amendment because I feel that it is too prescriptive and it hand ties planners and developers into a lack of creativity for site development.
Okay, and it's been seconded by Ms. Dewey. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor basically to delete the friendly amendment. The wording calculates snow storage with a minimum of 8 feet per side, which would be the 3rd sentence in condition 6. Mr. Barrett, do you have a comment on this? If not, I'll let you wait till we vote.
I'll wait, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any additional comments on this motion to delete the friendly amendment? Yeah, Ms. Pease.
Yes, I'll speak to it. We heard from Mr. Barrett that this is a gap in the code, the dimensions of snow storage areas, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard was that there is consideration of improving or refining the Girdwood Code to make this requirement that a snow storage area must have minimum dimensions of 8 feet. And the reason being that there's a whole lot of snow in Girdwood, and if you are clearing with a truck, a plow, which is going to be the case on these long driveways and roadways, you've got to be able to, push it in there, and you just can't nudge very much snow into a 2 or 4 foot space. So especially since these snow storage areas are shown as right in among the landscaping, the vegetation, which is also required by code, I feel there needs to be some way to both protect the vegetation and to ensure that it's functional, that the snow storage is functional. And this is part of our conditional use approval, to make sure that there won't be negative environmental impacts. In this case, it would be to the vegetation and also potentially the effects on drainage and even maneuvering safety. So I'll be supporting it since there isn't well, I'll be supporting it.
Okay, any further comments on?
I have a comment, actually. So the motion was to remove. So you were supporting the motion? Or?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I will be opposing the motion to remove. Thank you.
You know, I will also oppose it, and you know, we do say in here homeowners association is responsible for snow storage, but we should be careful not to make that some Herculean task for them. I mean, it is part of our job to look at this and say, is it realistic that they have the room they need to store the snow and handle it responsibly? And I think it's looking pretty close. This requirement that it would be minimum 8 feet on the side, it looks to me that that would take some redoing of their drawings, but they are over the square footage that's required. Deleting the small areas, they should still be able to make it. And the challenge in coming up with good snow storage areas now, I believe, will be less than the challenge to homeowners once they have to try to figure out where to put it with the current design shown to us.
Okay,
opposing the motion.
Okay, Mr. Parks.
I'll be supporting that motion to remove that requirement. And I'd like to ask Mr. Barrett one question. That's, they are over-parked currently by about 3 slots. Can that be used alternative to snow removal or snow storage in the wintertime only?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Parks, yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Shimon, do you have any?
Well, my only comment, I have 2 comments that I want to make. The first is, you know, this is a very attractive site plan, and I feel that having to have 64 square feet in a variety of places is detrimental to the overall site plan as far as attractiveness is concerned. The second thing I want to say is homeowners associations are not children. They are adults. They read their documents. They know exactly the issues and the problems that they have to deal with. And I understand that it's our responsibility to take garbage and snow storage into consideration and to make sure that there are vehicles for their removal. And I feel that the homeowners association documents can address those issues adequately. And if the way that they're being addressed by the property management company is inadequate, I can assure you that the homeowners will take appropriate action. And I don't feel that we need to legislate that beyond that.
Any further comments? Okay, there's disagreement on this, so we'll have to use our machines. A yes vote removes the requirement to calculate snow storage with a minimum 8 foot per side. A no vote leaves it in. So please vote. Go ahead and do it. You know, can't we? Well, you can't show it?
Not until I pick A. See, we have it down here. See, you've got.
Yeah, I know. So what do I do? It fails, yes. Yeah. Okay, that motion fails. Okay, Mr. Barrett, you've been in the queue for quite a while.
Mr. Chairman, if the motion to withdraw had passed, I would have dropped it. I just want to make sure I understand. We will calculate snow storage only for those areas that are 8 by 8. We'll disregard anything less than 8 by 8. And if the applicant does not meet the standard for snow storage, he's just going to have to amend the site plan even further to show that he can meet the site plan, the standard for our snow storage. That was the intent of Ms. Pease's friendly amendment, I think.
Yes, I assume that he can commit to snow hauling, though.
Right, to snow hauling also. Thank you.
Yeah, although that may require identification of a snow dumping site.
back to the main motion that Mr. Weddleton put in, and it consists of items 1 through 9 as written, item 10 with some wording on a substitute plan, item 11, item 12 was changed, item 13 was deleted, 14 is the same, and 15 was added on the dimensions to the children's play area, and the calculate the snow storage area, the minimum 8 per side is on item 6, second sentence. So are there any other discussion or changes on the proposed approval? Mr. Barrett, in the queue again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just for clarification again regarding Ms. Pease's added condition for dimensions of the play area to be shown on the site plan. May I ask what's the purpose of that?
Well, there's a minimum required, and it's just important, I think, to show that the minimum, to show visually that the minimum is met, and then, when construction plans are drawn up, there's, a footprint.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Pease, let me flip to that. I believe that the standard for play area says only 1,000 square feet. I don't believe there, in 2140, other zoning districts, there is a minimum dimension of 10 feet for usable play area. But I don't think that applies for Girdwood.
Through the Chair, I wasn't asking for any minimum dimensions. I was just asking that the dimensions be labeled. Just the way the dimensions of the driveways are labeled as, however, 30 feet here and 31 feet long there. Just put the numbers on the map so a layperson can see that it meets the dimension, and when they get around to, the blueprints, that dimensions can be provided.
So that the calculation can be shown to be 1,000 square feet or more.
Yes, just labeling it as shown.
Well, I was going to speak to some findings if we're ready for that, but if not, I'll...
Okay. Was there any other changes that people wish to make? Okay, let's have some findings there, Mr. Weldon.
Okay, I'll be supporting the motion. A few findings. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors had no objections to the conditional use. The staff report shows that the conditional use meets the minimum requirements in general. Changes to the conditions that we made regarding the vegetation and the snow storage requirements meet weaknesses that staff had found in the site plan. And I'd say in general this does provide, I think, a more attractive development than would have been built under the old plan. That's that.
Any further findings? Ms. Pace?
Yes, I would like to speak to the change I made with regard to the providing minimum dimensions for snow storage. There are a couple of reasons for that. We heard testimony during this public hearing, in part from Commissioner Parks, about the need to maneuver snowplow trucks and the fact that the driveways with snow pile along the sides will get narrower and narrower, and that can pose a safety hazard. And one of the standards for conditional use approval that we are charged with, 2150-020D1, is pedestrian and vehicular traffic circulation and safety. Girdwood is a walking as well as a driving community, so people will be coming and going with those high snow banks. But in addition, there's the question of the vegetation, this sort of cheek by jowl with the snow storage. And when we wrote the Girdwood chapter, we heard testimony from Girdwood residents about how important it was to have a forested look, a vegetated look to the community. And the 20% requirement for vegetation, even in this mid-density development, can be achieved if the vegetation is protected from the maneuvering vehicles, and having the larger snow areas helps ensure that. And finally, I guess there's just sort of the common sense approach. It doesn't feel responsible to accept snow storage calculations that we've heard are not functional. Some of these strips appear to be 2 or 3 feet, and if there's vehicles, snow plows are clearing these roads, it's really hard to maintain the snow within those narrow strips. So we need to in allowing a conditional use, make sure that it's practical, and that's the reason for having these minimum dimensions for snow storage.
Any further comments? Okay, fine, we're prepared to vote. Are there any objections? That is approved with the changes. Okay, I have one question for staff. On this C3 on the Terrace subdivision, do you want us to keep these things for the 6th of December? You want to pick them up or what?
I'll pick them up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We hope it goes away, but it may not.
Okay, well, that's a big wad of paper, so we'll put it on the front here. You can pick it up. Okay, I don't have anything else for anybody this evening. I have to hang around and sign a bunch of pieces of paper, but everybody else, if we'll get a motion to...
I'd like to speak for a moment.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And Mr. Barrowwood.
Okay. Well, Mr. Weldon, go ahead.
Barrett, first,
I don't want to steal any thunder. Please go first.
Well, it's not a surprise, but Mr. Barrett informed me this evening that I was not reappointed to the commission. So, and I'm not sure, was there someone nominated to replace me?
No. And there's more bad news.
Okay. Well, which makes an interesting position because I was not nominated and nobody was chosen to replace me. So what the mayor is telling me is that nobody is better than me, so which could be taken as a compliment. So I will accept that. And I've got to say, I'm not sure how much longer I linger on. I mean, I could resign now. We don't have a meeting until December, and I'm sure they'd get someone else to replace me by then. Like I say, it has been a real honor to be on here and huge education. I mean, I hope I've done good work for the city, but I have gotten so much out of being on here that I know it was a big win for me in the last couple of years. So, anyway, thank you for working with me and all your indulgences for my habits and so on.
Well, what was the other bad news?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Phelps, Tony Jones has also not been reappointed. The good news is that Mr. Parks has been reappointed. And anyone who is not reappointed, we can use you on the Zoning Board or the Urban Design Commission. There are possibilities.
My son's in Boy Scouts, and let me tell you about Boy Scouts. For every hour he's in Boy Scouts, the dads do at least 3.
Mr. Eichner?
Yes, go ahead.
Ms. Jones isn't here to thank, but I've relied greatly on her institutional knowledge and her ability to be feisty when the occasion demanded. And Mr. Weldon, I'd like to thank you for your incredible hard work and thoroughness. I've tried to be thorough myself, but always sort of had that reassurance that if I didn't get through the packet page by page, you would have. So I think your service to this commission is going to be hard to replace because few people will go at it with the dedication that you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add to that I got booted off the commission once too. So I expect to see you back, and I should probably expect to see Miss Jones back too. The winds blow to the right and to the left, and that people tend to follow the winds that are appointees, and that's just the way it is. So, but John, I really appreciate you. You're extremely dedicated. as Nancy said, if she didn't see it, you do it, or vice versa. So we're going to have to get somebody else on board here that really goes through that stuff with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that everybody's held to honesty and we don't forget stuff. So I appreciate your service, sir.
Well, I'd just like to say that, it's no secret that John and I don't always agree on things, but I have learned a tremendous amount from you, and I look forward to continuing our dialogue in some other venue at some other point in time.
Well, I'm not going away.
I'd also like to really say that I appreciate your dedication, your commitment here, and just the amount of work you put in. And you have learned a lot, and we have learned a lot from you. Thank you.
Any other comments from the members? Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And there's got to be a seconder.
Second.
Very good. Thank you. Any objection? Good night.